Welcome back, everybody. I'll try to make this video as short as possible. Today we'll be discussing the brachial plexus. Just wanted to let you guys know where the brachial plexus lies. It mainly lies in the axilla and comes out of the roots starting from C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. What the brachial plexus is basically this part right here. I want to isolate it for you guys. It's a very complicated network of nerves, and it's usually used for the main nerve supply of the upper arms or upper limbs. And so it's a lot of branches, a lot of tributaries to it, but it's very essential for the supply of the muscles of the upper arm and some cutaneous innervations as well. Just let's dive into its structure really quickly right here. I will show you guys the notes at the end of this video, but just wanted to have the scheme of it right here in front of you, just that you just know the structure of the brachial plexus. Before I start, I want to advise that when you study the brachial plexus and you know everything in it, make sure you put a piece of paper in front of you and draw it a couple of times so that you can memorize this really well. That's how it worked out for me. Maybe some of you just can just memorize it off looking at it for some time. But for me, I had to draw it to really understand how things happen. It starts from the C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. These are the main roots of the brachial plexus. I'll discuss the smaller branches later at the end of the video, but let's just dive into the main structure of the brachial plexus. And so from C5 and C6, these are the roots that would join together to form so the trunks. And so just before we dive into it, so I have a very nice way of memorizing the stage of the brachial plexus. So R, T, D, C, B. I would say rugby players like to drink cold beer. So rugby players like roots, trunk, two, divisions, drink, chords, cold, branches, beer. Okay, so the roots would lead to the trunks would lead to the divisions would lead to the chords, and the chords would lead to the branches. To start with the roots, C5 and C6 would join together to form the upper trunk. C7 would just go alone to form the middle trunk, and C8 and T1 would join together to form the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. Now, each trunk of the brachial plexus would go ahead and form the divisions. So each trunk would give out an anterior division and a posterior division. So anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior. And so every division would give out an anterior and posterior division. So now the chords are formed from these anterior and posterior divisions. This is where some trick might happen, but just remember, as easy as it can be, the posterior chord is formed from all the posterior divisions of the trunks. Okay, so the posterior divisions of every trunk would join together to form the posterior chord. The lateral chord, found most laterally away from the trunk of the body, would be formed by the anterior divisions of the upper and the middle trunks. So here, anterior joined together to form the lateral chord. And finally, what's left is the posterior division of the anterior division of the lower trunk. The anterior division here would be the only one to form the medial chord. Okay, again, posterior chord formed by the posterior divisions of all of the trunks. Lateral chord would be formed by the anterior division of the upper and the middle trunk, and the medial chord would be formed by the anterior division of the lower trunk. Then these chords would go ahead and give rise to the ending branches of the brachial plexus. Now, I just want to mention the 5 main branches of the ending branches of the brachial plexus, and these are musculocutaneous, median, ulnar, radial, and axillary nerves. And so the musculocutaneous nerve is found to be produced or formed by the lateral chord of the brachial plexus. Both the lateral chord and the medial chord would form the median nerve of the brachial plexus. The ulnar nerve would be formed by the medial chord. And finally, the posterior chord would be splitting into the final ending branches called the radial nerve and the axillary nerve. Okay, for the rest of the branches, these are just tiny branches that would go ahead and supply some muscles or cutaneous innervations. We will discuss this here in the notes, and maybe let's just share with you some general information about the brachial plexus here. you can just pause the video and read for yourself, but I would just point out that it's a big network that is used and concerned with the innervation of the skin and the muscles. So cutaneous innervations and muscles of the upper limb. What else? So the stages here as well, you have the roots, C5, C6, C7, C8, T1, trunks, divisions, cords, branches, which I just discussed. Now I will just dive into the smaller branches. This is if you want to know more about the position and the relations of the brachial plexus, you can just pause the video. I'll just scroll slowly here for more information. Okay, so this is about also injury of the brachial plexus, what happens if any injury happens, might be useful. Okay. Okay, so branches of the roots, these are the branches that come out of the C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. That's where exactly those roots come out from. Nerves to rhomboids. So here we're basically supplying three muscles, levator scapulae, and two rhomboids. They're the rhomboid major and the rhomboid minor. And they come out of the C5 of the brachial plexus. Nerve to serratus anterior. It's called the long thoracic nerve. It comes out of the roots of C5, 6, and 7 of the brachial plexus. This is some information about its course, but it supplies the serratus anterior muscle. There's also a root to the phrenic nerve, arises from the C5 root, and then branches to supply scalene muscles in the neck from the roots C5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Branches of the upper trunk. This is basically coming out of the trunk stage of the brachial plexus, mainly the upper trunk. So there are three trunks in the brachial plexus, upper, middle, and lower, and we're talking about the branches here from the upper trunk. The first one is nerve to subclavius. So here, this nerve would go to supply the subclavius muscle, which is the muscle that is found below the clavicle, part of the muscles that surround the thoracic wall. It may give it may take a branch from the from C5 to join the phrenic nerve. The suprascapular nerve is the nerve that comes out from C5, C6 roots. And so it would reach the supraspinous fossa and supply the suprascapular muscle. Okay. Yeah, so here, spinatus and infraspinatus muscles, actually both of them. So it'll supply the supraspinous spinatus muscle and the infraspinatus muscle found on the posterior aspect of the scapula. And it would also supply the here acromioclavicular and the shoulder joints. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. And then so you have also branches from the medial and lateral cords of the brachial plexus. You have lateral pectoral nerve, medial pectoral nerve. You have the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm and the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm. And then you have small branches of the posterior cord. You have the upper and lower subscapular nerves. And then you have a nerve going to latissimus dorsi.